wanted to sit down with Kawania Wooten today and get a little bit more insight. So, one thing we all focus on are the successes in life. I think a lot of times we like to hear about people's successes, what we've done that's big and fun and interesting, but we don't often get to see the hardships, the stumbling blocks, or the failures that people who are hugely successful have to go through and experience along the way. So, Kawania, what would you say was maybe your biggest failure or mishap in your career, and what did you learn from it?
So my biggest failure was actually that before I started my business, I got fired. It was, I would love to say it wasn't my fault, but I had to take some ownership in that. And I remember being devastated and people saying to me, Juania, where one door closes, another one opens. And at that point, I'm cynical and I'm angry. And I remember saying to my dad, I wish people would stop saying that. And my father said, well, baby, if you keep focusing on the door that's closed, you won't even see when the other door opens.
Mm.
And I remember being struck by that statement. And I remember he also, around the same time, one of my girlfriends said, you're free. And there was, at that point, I had just finished reading a book called The Secret Life of Bees. And there was a line in the book where the little girl had opened the jar and the bees didn't leave the jar. And she said, that's the thing about these bees right now. They don't know they're free. So they didn't know to leave the jar. And that little thought in my head was, my jar is open. And so instead, I had looked for a new job. I had actually gotten a job offer, and it was a dream job by a lot of people's standards. But it required me to travel to Europe a lot. And my son was 7 at the time, and I realized this was my opportunity to try something else, and at the same time be very present in his life. And so I didn't take the job and started Howerton+Wooten events. And during the process, I worked a lot. So I'm not going to tell you, oh, I had all this free time with my son, but I could set my schedule in ways. So, and it's funny because I still wake up early because of this, but I would wake up about 4:30, 5 o'clock every morning. And I did that so I could get my day started. I would take him to school, continue to work. But when I picked him up at 3:30, I could take him to the park because I put in plenty of hours at that point, and I didn't feel guilty about it. And so he and I are, even though we probably could kill each other, he and I are about as close as a mother and son can get. And I know a lot of that has to do because of the choice I was able to make and the life that I had set myself up for to be able to live. And that to me is much more important than traveling to Paris every year. So, yeah, I lost my job and took a new path, and I don't regret it one bit.
It's amazing. I think a lot of people forget in those moments of seeing a failure like that, or at least you identify it as a failure,
Uh-huh.
whatever it might be. I think a lot of people forget that you have the power to take those experiences and turn them into something positive and
Hmm.
powerful. Like you were just saying, even if it's not necessarily a career thing, even if you hadn't started your company, just
Yeah.
having that time for your son and how you structured your life around it, um, that's pretty awesome. Really
Yeah.
important.
No, and I feel very blessed, because while he and my husband are close, my son and I have a very different relationship. I know the secrets, as I tell people, I know where the bodies are buried. So I know all the good stuff. And I know it's because he is, he's comfortable telling me those things. I mean, he's also comfortable fussing at me and saying the things that sons should never say to their parents, but I'm his person.
Yeah.
So, and I know that's because I've been there, through thick and thin.
And that's so special. I feel like not a lot of people can probably say that about their relationships they have with their children.
Hmm.
Period. They might be, a really wonderful relationship, but that kind of depth and that time that you got to spend to really be together and develop that relationship. It's just
Oh yeah, to the point that when he was in the 8th grade, he actually tried to pay me not to chaperone an events.
not.
Because I think he had had enough of me. And I was like, oh, for that reason, I'm definitely coming.
And the one after that, and the one after
Uh-huh.
You know what I also love? I love that you are showing how you can have a family and a successful career all at once. I think so many women think they can't. I know that's not the topic we're talking about, but
Right.
I love it. I think it's so important for women to know you can do both and do it well. It doesn't mean you have to have one or the other.
No, but there is some truth to you can't have it all. You
No.
have to make some sacrifices, and you have to decide what you can live without. So when he was about, it's funny that I had this conversation with a 7-year-old. I'm like, all right, here's the deal. When I'm working, I am not going to feel guilty that I'm not with you.
Yeah.
But when I'm with you 100%. And because what I refuse to be is the guilt-ridden mother. Oh my gosh, I'm not spending time with my child. Nope. But when I'm with him, and so when he had piano lessons every Wednesday, we would go to California Tortilla afterwards, and I would purposely put my phone in the glove compartment of the car so that he got my undivided attention. And then there were times when we would go out to dinner on Friday, if maybe at a half day of school. And one funny time is I remember my husband joining us, and my son was annoyed. It's almost like he's like, "No, you're taking away her attention from me. This is my time. You have to get your own time, dude."
Right. That was
But
your special time together.
yeah, and so, but that is how we made it work. My rule was, as long as I'm in town, I was at every recital, every, school event, every parent teacher conference, I was there. But if I was traveling for work or anything, I wasn't there, and I didn't feel guilty about it. This is just life. It's how it is. I'm not going to be there 100% of the time. I'm not going to put that on myself. And
Balance.
and I mean, I missed stuff, but he knew he had me if I was there. Now, there have been a couple of recitals. I'm not going to lie. I was like, and I may have been in the first or second row a couple of those times I did that. He thought that, and I remember I said, I fell asleep. He goes, "Oh yeah, we saw you," but I, he wasn't mortified. It was more like, she's probably tired, but I was there. So, it was, just understanding that you don't have to be perfect to do your job well or to do motherhood well. Most of the time, your child just wants to know you have their back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Finding that life balance is so important.
Yeah. Or just finding those pockets, because, I think balance is a bit of a myth.
Oh,
I'm either working all the time or I'm volunteering and the work slips a little bit. It's just being able to make it work so that you're not anxious or wound up about it. So that was my biggest moment where I thought I bombed. I mean, I've had, and I'm very open about that. I've had a lot of failures running Howerton+Wooten events. And honest to goodness, I own every single one of them, because if nothing else, I walk away saying, okay, I will never do that again. Or what am I taking away from this? How am I growing? And, and sometimes it's required me to say, I'm sorry. A couple of times, and that's a hard one for us. We don't want to apologize because we don't want to admit we're wrong. But I may have flubbed something up, and I have to come back and say, you know what? I, I messed that one up, and I take ownership for that. And usually, again, just like your child just wants to know you have their back, sometimes people just want to feel validated. So if you can come and say, okay, I didn't get that one right. I apologize, and this is how I'm going to make it up to you. That goes a long way.
It really does. And those
But
are kind of the best learning tools also, just
yeah,
throughout your career and in this industry. That's how we build and grow. And if you never messed up, how would you ever know what to do in a crisis, or if something else is going wrong that maybe isn't even your fault? You know.
I wrote my crisis management book, and just about everything was based on the stuff that I went through.
Mhm.
Um, and these aren't failures, if I quickly, and my one of my first conferences, it was in the middle of an earthquake, the biggest earthquake that hit San Francisco since 1906. Um, Fast forward 6 years was the first time I was the leader of a big conference, and my keynote speaker died from a heart attack the night before the conference started in Toronto. So we
Oh,
were in not even an American hospital.
mhm.
And there I learned that now I need to collect emergency information for people. And then we fast forward 6 years again, and I was planning an 1,100 person foundation dinner in Manhattan that was scheduled to take place the day after 9/11. So, I have learned something from everything I've been through, and then use that to prepare myself better for the next time. But, as I've shared stories about feeling like I can't do something, that's very different when things are out of your control. And as I tell my team, you don't have to be the most vocal, but you have to be the alpha. And you have to be the one that people feel comfortable coming to in time of crisis, because we event planners, people rely on us for that.
Yep.
And so that's probably one of the biggest lessons I learned. So I was around people who were much higher levels than me for 9/11, and they were asking me, Kawania, what are we doing here? I'm thinking, I want to go home. I don't know I don't know about this. I want to get out of here. And it taught me that in a moment of crisis, and I stay calm, that in a moment of crisis, which goes back to the very first conference that I planned, where they said that was one of my best skills, um, that um, that I could think. You got to think on your feet and be able to say, "All right, I got a plan, but let me come back to you," and then figure it out. But those things all teach us how to be better at our job if we pay attention.
Yep.
Because if we get deep in the minutia of being a victim, you won't learn a thing.
No, thank you so much again for sharing all of your wisdom, all of your knowledge. We just love learning more from you and about you, and so appreciate you taking more time out of your day today.
It's my pleasure, and thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.